We're doing a water pump on a 2004 Honda CRV today. It's a 2.4, and it's in a rather hard spot, so it's going to be kind of difficult for me to record, but I'm going to do the best I can on this, give you guys the best tips I can. So hope this video helps you. Make sure your car is cooled down before you open the radiator. This one's a little warm, but it hasn't built up any pressure or anything, so it should be okay. You do not want to open this when it's hot. You could definitely injure yourself with burns. So this one's missing some clips. You might have a couple here, but I've got a couple 10mm bolts here and then 2 more clips here. Doesn't look like there's anything else on the bottom of this one, but there should be more. I'll probably end up replacing them. So we need to get the belt off first. That's one of the more difficult things here. Well, there's a couple things, but you can move the power steering pump reservoir. It helps a little bit, or you can drain it and disconnect it. I personally just move it, but you're trying to get to that pulley down there is your tensioner, and you're going to want to push it. I believe it goes counterclockwise to loosen up, and there's a couple different ways you can do that. Honda has a special tool for it, or you can use extra long wrenches, or you can actually go through the hassle of pulling the motor mount and giving yourself more access to it. Personally, I have some extra long wrenches, so I'll be using that. I'll also link those in the description in case you guys want to pick some up, but they work rather well. If you're doing it with a regular wrench, you might be able to get one on there and then piggyback another wrench. I'm not sure if you know what that means. I'll give you an example. So by piggybacking a wrench, what I mean is you'll put the box end on the nut down there, and then you'll take another wrench and you'll slide it into here, and that'll give you extra room, so you'll have more length, and you can also have better leverage on it. But I don't know for sure that this setup would work on this vehicle. I'm just trying to offer ideas. Okay, so you're gonna go clockwise on this. That was my bad, I'm sorry. So you're gonna wanna go clockwise with it. That way it pushes it that way. I'm using a 14mm. Like I said, I got extra long wrench, and it's got the swivel head on it, so that helps a lot. And then, like I said, you want to go clockwise with it, and at the same time you got to pull this belt off, so it gets rather difficult. Actually, I'm going to use a breaker bar too. Okay, this tensioner is rather tight, so what I did is took off my prop rod, and I've got it set up on this side, so I give myself a little more room to work with over here, and it's not in my way. I'm going to use a cheater bar on this to give me a little more leverage. I'll take it back as far as I can. And then I should be able to slip that belt off. There we go. So that's kind of difficult to do sometimes. Alright, so I lifted the car pretty high just so I can give you guys the best view I can. But here's your water pump, and you're going to slide the belt off here. You are going to have to remove the harmonic balancer, and most times you will not be able to get this bolt off with a gun or by hand. Well, I mean, you will, but you'll have to have the special tool that goes in here to hold it down. I'll show you that, and I will also have that linked in the description for you. But it is necessary to remove this to get the water pump out. So at this time, go ahead and pull your belt out. Belt, again, is one of the harder parts on this. Just getting it in and out in itself. Alright, this bolt has a 19 millimeter. I am going to attempt to use my ultra torque impact on this. This thing has, I believe it's 1,400 foot-pounds. But it's more than likely not going to get it, and we'll have to bust out that special tool. So we'll give this a try first. Unless this has recently been removed, it probably won't get it. Okay, so you can see what I'm talking about. Those are really cranked on tight, and that's pretty common on every Honda out there. So just be prepared for this. I'll show you how to use the tool now. Alright, so for this, Honda makes a special tool to stop the crankshaft pulley. You set it in here, and then what I like to do is I will use a ratchet or a breaker bar or something just to stop it. It's going to stop on the axle there, and then you're going to need a breaker bar, a 19 millimeter socket, and a breaker bar for here, and then just snug that up onto the axle so it stops. Whoops, I got that the wrong way. Hang on just a second. Okay, so get that snugged up so it stops. So that's now locked in. And I'll show you, I'll probably end up using a cheater bar on this too. It can take quite a bit of force. So I'll try with just the breaker bar first. And that's not going to happen. So what I'm going to do now is get about a 4-foot cheater bar to give me a little more leverage. A good long jack handle works good. Okay, so like I said, that can be pretty difficult to do. And normally you can pull this off by hand, just kind of wiggle it back and forth a bit, and it'll come on off. And that gives you access to your water pump. Okay, so this part is going to be super hard for me to film. You see where it's located, so I'm not going to be able to show you guys very much of this. But here's your water pump. There's going to be, I believe it's 10 bolts that surround it, and you can move this pulley to get to the ones that are behind it. So this is going to be very difficult on getting all these bolts out, but just follow the water pump around and you find all the bolts. This one is squealing. That's why we were changing it. So here's a view of the new water pump. It sits in there like this. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3 that are behind the pulley, and then you've got 1, 2, 3. So there's 6 bolts total. But the 3 that are up towards the top, and then there's 3 behind the pulley, so you'll need to move your wheel to get access to those. They're all going to be 10 millimeter bolts, and I do believe they're all the same size, but we'll see. At this time, you're going to want to position your coolant bucket so it is underneath the water pump. The water pump's going to drip a little bit still. Okay, so for the bolts in here, you're gonna use I personally like to use a 10mm quarter-inch drive. It gives you, I use the deep socket on the 10mm. It gives you access to this one that's back up in here. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get your socket on it, and that's going to be the hardest bolt that you got to remove. So I like to start with that one, but what I do is I'll set this in the hole, and then I'll move it up to that bolt there and position it on it, and then get it that way. It's a very difficult bolt to reach. And again, this is the best angle that I'm going to be able to give you guys, and I know my hands are going to be in the way a lot, but I'm trying to video this for you, so doing the best I can. And of course, these are really extremely tight, which they shouldn't be. Be very, very careful not to strip these, because that'll put you in a nightmare. Again, this is going to be the hardest one probably. The top one might be rather difficult too, but this one is a pain in the butt, especially with the camera right there. I'm going to have to move you guys. Alright, so with it loose, here's the setup that I'm going to use to pull it out. I've got a short 10mm quarter-inch drive with a swivel, and then I'll just twist it out with this. Again, this is the hardest. I think this is the hardest one of all of them. I hope. So this one's very difficult, and if you think it's hard coming out, wait till you put it back in. Just keep working it. There you go. Pretty sure it's loose. I'm gonna get a magnet. Alright, so I got a little magnet. I'll pull that out, hopefully. Oh, jeez. Come on. Alright, there's that one. I'm going to use this setup on the next bottom one, and then just go around. I'm not going to film this because the camera's getting in my way, so you'll just go around and take off all 6 bolts. I'll kind of try to film it a little bit, but you won't be able to see this at all, so kind of pointless. Okay, so I got the 3 top ones to go. I think I will use a 10mm wrench on these ones. I think that's going to be the easiest access to them. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to use a 10mm angled wrench on this. I think that's going to give me the best access on the 3 back here. You're really just going to have to kind of feel around. Again, do not strip them. It's going to give you a world of hurt if you end up stripping them. So make sure your wrench is on right. It's really hard to see what you're doing up there. Again, the camera's in the way, so I'm just going to have to shut this off for a minute. Okay, so I've got 2 of those 3 bolts out. I had a very difficult time with the one that's right above the pulley. Somebody thought it'd be a good idea to put Loctite on that for some reason. So that one took me about 20 minutes in itself. But I'm on the last bolt and I'm just gonna kind of hold the water pump there as I pull this last one out. And this car's still quite a bit hotter than I thought it was, so it's been making this a little more difficult to definitely cool your car down before doing this. Okay, so there's that last bolt. And all the bolts are the same size, so you don't really need to worry about keeping them in order. And from here, you're just gonna kind of work this down and out. Make sure you got the gasket with it. And check everything up there. We'll clean that up real good, and then we'll install the new one. Now that I've got that out, it's a little easier to show you where those at. So this one, and this one are behind the pulley, so you'll need to move the pulley as you get those out. Best to get those with a quarter inch drive, 10 millimeter deep. And then to finish pulling them out, like I said, I used a 10 millimeter shallow and a swivel and an extension. That helped with those. The three up there, you've got one there, one up on the very top, and then one that's right on the top of the pulley. That one's very difficult to get. The best thing to do is use a quarter inch drive with a 10 millimeter short socket to break those loose, and then just pull them out by hand. Again, somebody had decided to use thread lock on that one up there, so I had a very difficult time with that one. I don't know if they were playing a joke or what. So compare your old water pump with your new water pump. Everything's the same there. New gasket. And turn off my flash here. Okay, so get your new O-ring placed into the water pump, gasket, O-ring, whatever you want to call it. When I put this in, these three bottom bolts are nearly impossible to get to, so I like to start with the top ones. You just hand tighten them. You don't want to fully tighten them all until you get all of them in. I know you guys probably can't see this too well. I do apologize. Again, it's very difficult to record this, but just get them started one at a time. Don't tighten them completely up until you get all of them started. One above the pump is going to be, or above the pulleys, is going to be one of the hardest ones. Move the camera. Okay, so for the bottom ones, they're going to be really difficult, and I'm not going to be able to film it, obviously. But I use a magnet, and then I'll set the bolt on there and get it in its hole, and then come back with that same setup to get it started in there. I'll try to record it. Let's see, we'll do this one right here first. Let's see if that can be a pain in the butt. Just keep working it. And even then, that doesn't always work either. Okay. And then I use the same setup with the short 10 and get them started. Okay, I'm not going to record the other two because it's going to take me a bit, but you get the idea. Alright, so once you got them all hand tightened, you can come through and start tightening them up. There's no way you're going to get a torque wrench in here. So just tighten them up snug, get them a little bit tighter than snug. But you do not want to over torque them. You don't want to break them. You'll be in a world of hurt. So just get them snugged up. Crisscross pattern is the best way to go. Don't go in a circle. So I'm just gonna be alternating through my short 10mm and my deep 10mm. But again, crisscross pattern. Alright, once you got them all tightened up, just give the pump a spin. Make sure it sounds good. Blades aren't rubbing on anything. Good to go there. I am currently waiting on an oil seal. I noticed that this one was leaking, so I'm going to replace this as well. As soon as that gets here, we'll get this replaced and finish up the rest of this. Alright, so if you're doing this seal, when you get your new seal, you want to coat the inside and the outside with a little bit of oil. That will help it. And then you want to find something that's going to fit exactly around that. I have a huge socket that I bought a couple years ago and only used once. So ever since then I've been using it to set in seals. But basically, you might even be able to do this by hand. Actually, it feels pretty good. So you just want to get it to where it's level with the little bump on the timing cover there. Make sure it's in straight. Yeah, that works. So that's perfect right there. If you needed to use this, you would just slightly tap it in real lightly and slowly until you get it seated in. But that worked just fine right there. So you want to get it level with this ridge right here, and then make sure you've already coated this so when you put your crankshaft in there it doesn't rip it. Crankshaft pulley, excuse me. And just line this up with your key, which mine came out, so let's put that back in. So if your key slips out, you can just slide that right back in there. I need to put this down. Alright, let's try that again. Boy, that key doesn't want to fit there. There we go. Alright. then to torque this, we're going to do the same way that we used to get it off. So I'm going to set this up. This time we're going to go under the CV shaft. And then, believe it or not, this only calls for 36 foot-pounds of torque. And then an additional 90 degrees. So 36 foot-pounds. And actually, we need to leave that in there because we got to go an additional 90 degrees. Make sure that's... Okay. I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so we're going to go an additional 90 degrees on this bolt here. So we know that at the 12 o'clock position to go all the way around is 360 degrees. So if you divide 360 degrees into quarters, it'd be 90, and then from there. So you would take from 12 o'clock to the 3 o'clock position. So in order to do that, you can't just use your torque or your breaker bar and tighten it up, because you won't know exactly how tight you're getting it. Even if you feel like you've gone 90 degrees with your pry bar, your breaker bar, you might not be at the 3 o'clock position. So what I will do is make a mark at the 12 o'clock position, and I'll bring that mark down to the 3 o'clock position. So pretty simple. You can see my marks at the 12 o'clock position. I'm going to bring that to the 3 o'clock position, which will be right about there. And you may even need to use a cheater bar too. Let me show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to use that 4-foot cheater bar again. Alright, and now you can see right about 3 o'clock position. I might do it just a little bit more. Alright. Now onto the tedious task of getting the belt up in here. It's going to be rather difficult to do, but with a little bit of struggling, you'll get it on there for sure. It's best to start down here and then leave it loose up on the top, because we're going to pull it over the power steering pump pulley. Here's your belt routing diagram, just in case you need to know. You've got your crankshaft pulley, you got the AC, water pump, alternator, power steering, and then the tensioner. Alright, so for now, I think that's the best I can get. I'm going to have to do the rest from up top, I think. So, like I was saying before, the belt on this thing is really difficult. But if you just kind of keep working at it, you get it on there. You might cuss and moan and scream and yell a couple times, but that's okay. basically what we want to do right now is just kind of get it all looped around every pulley and almost to the point of being on a power steering pump. So that should be there. And then we've just got to get this on with the tensioner, which is probably very difficult. Well, I know it is, but sometimes it goes really easy, sometimes it goes really hard. So it's rather difficult to do, but what I like to do is kind of get this lined up around the tensioner and then start it a bit on the power steering pump pulley, because when you get your wrench in here, it's really hard to maneuver all this. Make sure you're in your grooves down below, because you're going to need all the room you can get. Alright, so belt up and around, and then just work it. And yes, your wrench gets in the way. It makes it very difficult, and you may have to try a few times. If you want to make it easier, you can remove the power steering pump reservoir. It would definitely help a little bit. All right, hang on. This one's being made. So I think since this one's giving me a problem, I'm going to start on the back side of the power steering pump. Try it that way. Hopefully. It's going to be really difficult to hold all this. If you have a friend here, it would help a lot. Alright. Piece of cake, yeah. So there you go. So, like I said, there's a few clips that are missing on this. I'm gonna replace a few. I think for this I'll use a zip tie. I think that'll work. One there and one there. That should do the trick. Okay, so now you're gonna fill and burp your coolant. As you're filling this, you're gonna want to temporary stop every now and then and just take a look underneath, make sure you don't have any leaks going. That way you don't waste as much coolant if you have to get back in there and tighten anything back up. What I like to do is get the radiator topped off. There's definitely going to be some air in there. Kind of keep track of what you pull out when you empty out the coolant. Like I pulled out probably about 1.5 gallons, so I expect to put at least that back in. At this point in time, I'm going to hook up my burping funnel and we'll start the vehicle and we'll get this burping out. There's plenty of videos on proper procedures to burp, so I'll probably just video a little bit of this and cut it in and out, because this can take up to about 20-30 minutes. So when you're ready to burp the car, you're gonna start it up and turn the heater on. Doesn't have to be full blast, you can just turn it on a notch or two, but you want that heater core to circulate as well. We're gonna purge all of the air out of the system, basically, is what we're doing. So we're going to let the vehicle run for quite a while, watch all the bubbles come out, and then you want to make sure that the thermostat opens up. So when the fans kick on, you know that the thermostat has opened up. Usually I'll let the fans kick on once, maybe twice, depending on how much burping is still going on in the coolant. But this can be a lengthy procedure, so I'll probably just do a couple flashes on camera here and there and kind of explain what I'm doing. But at this point, when you're all set up, go ahead and turn the car on, turn the heater on, and then just let it run. Okay, well, we were trying, as you guys heard, the water pump had a really bad noise, but as you can still hear the noise, there's still noise there, so obviously we haven't gotten it all out. It's going to be really hard to decipher between those because that noise just keeps rattling through everything. But at this point in time, you should be burping your coolant. As you can see, it's burping coolant out. You're just going to keep doing that until all the air is done. You want the thermostat to open up, so it'll take a little while. I'm sorry if you can't hear me too good. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes so far. My heater's starting to blow warm again, so it's getting there definitely. But you can still see bubbles coming out. And the fans haven't kicked on yet, so let it go just a little bit longer. Everything's going good this time, so you can see it taking more. So just keep topping it off, filling your heater, make sure your heater's getting hot again. Alright, it's been roughly about 25 minutes now. Bubbles have really slowed down. You're getting very little ones now. The fan's kicked on once, so that means the thermostat has opened up. The car's looking good. Check your heater, make sure it's blowing hot. The car hasn't overheated, so I think we're good at this point in time. I might let her run just a little bit longer just to make sure, and we'll close it up. Alright, you may or may not want to do this, but once I get it shut off, I like to let it sit for about 20 minutes because it's going to settle down a bit, and then I'll do a final top off. You can see how this coolant's still kind of moving around in there, so if there's still any air bubbles in there, they're going to pop up while it's doing that. and this allows everything to settle. You don't necessarily have to do this. Like, you could plug this up and cap it off right now, but it's just extra precautionary. Air bubbles can play a havoc on your coolant system, so just want to make sure that there isn't anything like that going on. But like I said, you can still see the coolant moving around, so it's going to do that for a little while as it cools down, and that'll work out any more air bubbles that are in there. Alright, so once it's cooled down a little bit, give it that final top off. Shouldn't take much, just a little bit. Make sure it's not still going down when you do that. If it's still going down, then you might let it cool off a little bit more. So we look good here, so that should do the trick. Cap it back off, and you're all set.